happens is you have the Mads Mikkelsen lion, who I mistook originally for Idris Elba, it's not. But you have these white lions, Chad. These colonizing lions that do some bad shit in the movie. Speaking of bad movies. That's a good segue, Chad. That's a good segue, yes. I'll give myself a little pat on the back with that one. That's a good one. Yes, indeed, chap. Let's go ahead and move on to my review for Mufasa, and heavy emphasis on that, chat, The Lion King. Now, before getting into the nitty-gritty details on this prequel sequel to the 2019 remake, see, not live action, that movie was not a live action remake of Lion King. That was just another animated remake. It was just a 3D animation. But before discussing 2019 and then also obviously Mufasa, I did want to share my thoughts on The Lion King. It's funny, we recently just did a watch party on my Discord for the original 1994 2D animated film, The Lion King, one of the best of the Renaissance era. Many would argue it is the best of the Renaissance era, and I think I would argue that too. It's always between, I love many of those films. Love Little Mermaid, love Beauty and the Beast, right? I really love Hercules. I've always enjoyed that film. Mulan's fun. Great. But yeah, the two for me that I've just loved, I go constantly back and forth with is Aladdin and The Lion King. Just great to watch those movies. Katria, my girlfriend, was actually watching Aladdin the other night, and I just caught the first third. I was like, man, this movie is just beautiful. It's aged incredibly well, as has the original Lion King. And that also was a special movie for me. For many kids of my generation that saw that film in the 90s, early 90s, that was my first theater experience, I think. At least it's the one that I remember the most. Like in 1994, going to see that where I was maybe like 3 or 4 years old or however, and just being blown away. Having the concept of death first introduced to me, the death of Mufasa. And just, obviously, it's a beautifully animated movie. Great voice acting across the board, from James Earl Jones as Mufasa to Jeremy Irons as Scar. Of course, Nathan Lane as Timon. Obviously, just wonderful. But then you just have these fantastic songs. It's a great score created by Hans Zimmer. Wonderful songs written and performed and sung by Elton John. Won him the Oscar, obviously. It's a great film. And I also like the VOD sequels. I know. There was a number of VOD sequels that were released in the 90s, the Disney ones, that weren't very good. Believe me, no one's going crazy about, Pocahontas' adventure in the old world or whatever, or the Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 and stuff. But the Lion King sequels, I thought were very good. I liked Simba's Pride. I love that it was their version of Romeo and Juliet, another Shakespeare adaptation. And the songs were pretty good. You had a great villain in there. And then The Lion King 1.5 was also surprisingly great, too. Really funny. Bringing back the original voice actors for Timon and Pumbaa, obviously, who were also in Lion King Part 2. But then showing how, basically The Lion King, the events leading up to The Lion King and The Lion King itself, it's all from their perspective. And that movie was great. And so it's yeah. And even more recently, they did that Lion Guard sequel series, which I've seen some of that. It's this is pretty good, too. This is fun, where it takes place before the events of, obviously after the events of the first Lion King, but then before the events of 2, and then after the events of 2 as well, and they acknowledge all that stuff. It's really cool. So it's a lot of the 2D Lion King stuff, in my opinion, is great. It's good to great across the board, right? I even had that Timon and Pumbaa animated series back in the day, which is, very fun, very Looney Tunes-esque, right? So yeah, I also had that too. But the 2019 film, not the live action, the 2019 CGI 3D CGI remake, I thought was terrible. When it comes to doing a remake, I'm not one of those guys you shouldn't remake that. It's no, if you're going to do a remake, I feel like you need to at least achieve this level. Either you have to be just as good, maybe in a different way, it doesn't have to be in the same way, but be just as good or better. And I think there's been some Disney remakes, or at least maybe one, I can say, that did that. And that was The Jungle Book, the 2016 Jungle Book. And I love the original Jungle Book, too. That was a great animated film with wonderful songs. But I thought that movie was great. I really enjoyed it. Not the case for the 2019 remake. It was not as good as that film. And in most cases, it was worse in terms of certainly the animation. They went with a photorealistic look for all the characters, and I think that just took away from so many of the personalities. Like when you see Simba in the 2D film, when his father Mufasa falls off that cliff, and the Scar goes, "Long live the king!" And I was like, "Ah!" And Simba's like, "No!" It's like you felt that. You felt that in the vocal performance. You felt that in the animation, and you felt that in just the reaction, the look on his face. And then you cut to the 2019 film, and you have the same exact scene play out, but it's photorealistic lines. They don't have any expression. And so when Simba says, he's just, "Nah," like when his dad dies, like, "Oh, okay, Simba, I guess you don't give a shit about your dad, Mufasa, after he was doing all this stuff for you." So it doesn't hit. It doesn't hit. And I think a lot of the voice acting wasn't great in the movie. That's the other thing. A lot of the songs, I thought you're either doing like just straight up like, all right, the Circle of Life, that was fine. But then you have some of these other songs that they just weren't as good. Like Be Prepared, which is one of the best villain songs of the Renaissance era, is fucking butchered in that movie. And it's not even a song. It's just more like Chwedio Ejiofor just talking. Just talk. Be prepared. Be prepared. I was like, give me a break. You had Beyonce Knowles, who was horrifically miscast as Nala in the film, and she butchered Can You Feel the Love Tonight? And it's a duet. Like, that song's a duet. And you have Beyonce and you have Donald Glover singing together. The thing is, she's singing so goddamn loud, and she just has more range than Donald Glover. Not to say Donald Glover's not a talented musician and songwriter and singer himself. He is, but they're very different. And she's singing over, you can't even hear him in the song. And then she just does that thing where it's like, because you remember in the original movie, it's like, "Can you feel the love tonight?" That's how it is. But she's doing this thing like, "Can you feel the love tonight?" And I was like, shut up. And I was like, ruined it. So not a fan of that movie. But here we go. With Mufasa. Mufasa, The Lion King. Is this movie any better than the 2019 remake? I will say this. It's a little bit better. It is a little bit better for, I think, maybe a couple reasons, but it's still not good. It's still not good. A couple improvements, no doubt about that. I have to acknowledge it while watching the film, but it still suffers from many of the same problems that the original film did. It just feels, despite pursuing a new story, it feels unoriginal. And the execution of its story and its themes and its characters, it just leaves you wanting. I think they just really trip over themselves making this movie. But to give you a synopsis of the film, this whole story of the legend of Mufasa, the Lion King, it's told by Rafiki. And he's talking to Beyonce Jr., Jack, because Beyonce, she got her kid to voice, the daughter of Simba and Nala, and Rafiki, who is occasionally interrupted by Timon and Pumbaa, voiced by Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen. He tells the story of Mufasa and Taka, your great uncle, who would one day become the greatest villain of the Pride Land, Scar, and everyone else that you've come to know. And he tells that story. And we kind of go back and forth to that too, like the present day and then the past and everything. They're playing with a lot of elements, a lot of story stuff going on, a lot of characters. And you have it where, Mufasa, he is washed away in this great flood, like Moses. He's like Lion Moses. And he comes upon the pride that has Scar or Taka. Mufasa is taken in by Taka and Taka's family. Taka's always wanted a brother, of course. Taka's father's not really great about having another male lion around, but the mom and the other lions that are there are like, well, this is what we'll do with Mufasa. We'll make him the protector of Taka, right? And he will serve him when he eventually becomes king. Establishing that Scar, the lion that would become Scar, and Mufasa are not blood related, which is very weird to me. That kind of just reeks of modern Disney for whatever reason. It's like, not to say like, listen, you can, not say like, well, in order to be a true brother, you need to be blood related. That's not what I'm saying. But it just feels like Disney's like, you know what? I just don't like the idea of having our hero be related by blood to the person who become the villain. It just sounds very toxic. It's just very toxic, and I just don't like it. So we're gonna have it where they're actually not related to each other. It's just a weird decision. I just didn't like that. But they grew up, and they are loving brothers. They have, a pretty good relationship. Mufasa is clearly, being more honorable. He's being taught by the lionesses how to be a true lion, right? He's, learning a lot of the lessons that he then would use later on his life and to become king of the Prime Land and stuff. And Scar's dad, or Taka's dad's just a dick. He's just an asshole. He's like, yeah, all that honor stuff, I'm not about it. You got in order to maintain power, you got to be a sleaze. You got to be a scumbag, Taka. And Taka's like, okay, I'm going to absorb all of this, and I'm going to definitely do this and execute these things later on. And that's kind of what it is. And what happens is you have the Mads Mikkelsen lion, who I mistook originally for Idris Elba. It's not. But you have these white lions, Chad. These goddamn white lions. These colonizing lions. That do some bad shit in the movie. And this then causes Mufasa and Taka to be separated and to go off on their own to find this idyllic place that would become the Pride Lands. And then they come to meet other characters as well throughout the movie, such as, Rafiki, of course, and Sarabi, obviously, later becomes, Queen of the Pride Lands, Mufasa's mate. But that's the general story. That's the general plot of it. Now, to be positive, I'll be positive right here. I do appreciate the filmmakers and Barry Jenkins at least trying to tell a new story in this world, because I think one of the worst things about just the 2019 film is just like, it was just a remake of the story that we are so familiar with, right? And just not done better in any way. Matter of fact, mostly worse. And so them at least trying to tell a new story is great. I mean, they're incorporating stuff from like Simba's Pride. There's a lot of that there. Maybe a little bit of Lion King 1.5 too, as well. They're incorporating some of that DNA here and showing it in their own way. But it is interesting, at least on paper, to like, all right, what was like Mufasa's life like? Well, what was his relationship with Scar? Like, did they always hate each other? Does Scar always want to kill his brother and usurp him and take over the throne? And this movie says it's like, it's actually a little different. And I was like, okay, and I think that's fine. But it's a fine idea, but it comes down to execution, right? And we'll get to that in a bit. And the other thing I would say as a positive is that the CGI animation, I think, is better in this. They still have that photorealistic look. However, they do a lot more of the faces. They're more anthropomorphic. They're more emotive, Whereas in the previous film, you got nothing from those characters, like no emotion whatsoever, because they went that route. Here, they do bring in more emotion to them. I think that was great. Again, I personally prefer the 2D animation. I yearn for the days of theatrical 2D animation again, so I have maybe a little bit of a bias there. But I have to admit, it does look better. Outside of that, it doesn't do anything good. Like that's pretty much it. Like they're just, as I said before, even with the story, they're just cramming so much into this movie, and despite like the story just feeling so overstuffed, it's incredibly underdeveloped, and the characters across the board are underdeveloped. I think the one character that people will gravitate towards the most, thankfully, is Mufasa. This orphan lion who grows up, later becomes king, goes on this great journey, finds himself, right, absorbs these lessons and things that he creates his own very positive philosophy. And he doesn't, like, unlike Scar, who has these aspirations and thinks like, well, I should be king because it's in my heritage. Mufasa, he earns it, and that's like, that's a positive thing. It's just like, with all of these voice performances, and you have some people in here that are like talented that I actually really like Aaron Pierre, who's been blowing up recently. Of course, most recently coming off of Rebel Ridge, which is a really good action thriller from this year. I really thought the movie was solid. He also plays mid-sized sedan in Old, right? But he's also been cast as Green Lantern. He's going to be Jon Stewart in the upcoming Lantern series of Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan. So, yeah, he's doing well. Like, he is the voice of Mufasa, and I think of all the voice actors, he's probably doing the best job. But, and again, I don't know how much I can blame him, but just so much of his dialogue, so much of what he is given, it's very workmanlike performance. There's nothing about it that really stood out to me that I thought like, whoa, I want to hear more of this guy, you know, and like, oh, this conversation was really interesting. Like none of it. Everything's just kind of flat. It's not always like it's bad. It's just kind of like, all right, there you go. Let's move on. Let's move on to the next scene. And then you have Kelvin Harrison Jr. as Taka, who then, of course, later becomes known as Scar, right? And he's the young prince. He's the adoptive brother of Mufasa, obviously. And listen, we were in the era of we have to like really get to like know that our villains, like the reason why they're villains is because of tragedy and things, obviously. Like that's what they really into nowadays. I kind of do miss the days of like a villain just being an asshole. Like Scar's has always been a sassy, effeminate bitch. All right? I just want my gay, evil lions, Chad. Just keep Scar evil and gay. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing at all. It works for him so well. And they just kind of stripped that from him. But again, on paper, it's not a bad idea to show like, oh, like Scar's fall. Like, what were the circumstances that created the lion that we came to know, that did all these horrible things? Like, again, it's an interesting idea. It's just not executed well at all. It's actually one of the worst aspects of the movie, and it's a big spoiler. And I'll get to that in just a bit. But, yeah, his voice performance, like Aaron Pierce, it's fine. It's very workmanlike. It's very standard. There's nothing that's going to be like grabby. I feel be like, oh, wow, that was very impressive. But what they end up doing just completely undercuts the character and his arc. Like what he does to become Scar, it kind of comes out of nowhere. And it's very frustrating. It's just like he does a complete 180. He goes from like, I love my brother. They have a song in the movie. We'll get to the music in a bit. He's like, oh, he's wanting a brother. You know, that's his whole thing. I just want a family. I just want a playmate. I want friends. That's what he wants. And he's that. And then something happens in the movie. He's like, all right, I need to kill my brother. And I need to make sure his bloodline does not continue. How can I do this? And it's like, wow. Holy shit. So psychotic, I suppose. Rafiki is whatever. He is what it is. Sabari, whatever. She shows up. She's an interesting wedge, is all I'll say, with Mufasa and Scar, but a very workmanlike performance. And then Mads Mikkelsen, who, listen, he has played a lot of great villains in his time. There's no doubt. He has a gravitas to him. He's a wonderful actor. His evil, the white lions, those colonizer lions and their whiteness taking over everything and not caring about them. He's just generic villain bad guy. There's nothing about him. He doesn't hold a candle to like the original Scar. He doesn't hold a candle to goddamn Zira in The Lion King too. Like both those villains just have, and again, it's what's written for them. It's their performances. It's their songs. They're just better. There's a villain song in this, and it's like, and we'll get to the songs again, but yeah, very, very uninspired Lion King villain. He's like a shitty version of Scar. And let's go back to Scar. They completely mishandle Scar or Taka. And this is a big spoiler for the movie. I'm going to spoil this part of the film. I don't think you guys are going to be too bothered by that. I don't know if you're going to see it. But it's when the thing happens I'm about to describe, you'll be like, oh, that was fucking quick and came out of nowhere. So for most of the movie, they established that Mufasa and Taka like really do love each other. They're very close, despite Mufasa just, being kind of better at everything, and Scar getting the wrong lessons from his dad, but still trying his best. Well, in the movie, we come to meet another lion, a lioness who joins their would-be adventure to find what will be later called the Pride Lands, and that is Sarabi, who of course becomes the mate of Mufasa and then Queen. And the thing is, in this movie, Taka falls head over paws for Sarabi. He sees her, he's like, I want that pussy. I want that pussy cat right now, right? And he's like really into her. The thing is, Sarabi's like, cool. she's into Mufasa, right? And Taka realizes this, and he's like, oh, all right, well, I'll just kill my brother. I'm going to join the evil white colonizing lions, and I'm going to kill my brother. And it's like, whoa, dude, you went from like, I always want a brother. He's like, I love my brother, isn't he great? And he's like, fuck him, go for pussy shit, for pussy cat. That's what he wanted. And then right before like Mufasa's gonna be killed, like Scar's like, you know what? I love my brother too much. He intervenes, and that's how he gets his scar. And even though it prevents like the death of Mufasa's fucking pissed off, which I understand why he'd be pissed. He'd be like, what the fuck? And he's even the one that's like, I am not going to call you Taka anymore. I was like, I never want to say you're like, everyone's like, get his ass out of here. Fuck this guy. Like, kick him out of the Pride Lands. And Mufasa's like, no. He should have listened to them, by the way. Like, in hindsight, he's like, I probably should have listened to those other animals. He's like, nah. I'm going to keep him around as a goddamn example. You're going to be called Scar. He takes the name Scar, basically. And it's like, oh, it's because he wears it. He wears it on his, like, it's his shame. That's what Scar is now. It's his shame. He's always going to be a pariah because of that. And that's what sets him up as the villain he is in the 2019 version. But it's just like, it doesn't make any sense. It just comes out of nowhere. It's just like, really? Because Sorabi didn't feel this way, but it's like he's incel. He's incel Scar. It's crazy. And it's just not earned. And it's such a integral part of the movie is their relationship, and you just undercut it in such a terrible way. It just didn't work at all. That is perhaps my most frustrating thing. It's that and one other thing. But the other thing in the movie that this surprised me, the songs just aren't very memorable. I'm not saying they're bad, but there's not a single song that, because you think of the music in The Lion King, it's like, wow, that music, like, I like watching the movie again last night, the 94 film, every song in that is great. You may have your favorite song, but there's not a single weak song in that movie, from the opening, The Circle of Life, to, I Just Want to Be King, to Be Prepared, to Hakuna Matata, like, to Can You Feel Love, like, every song is amazing. They're all 10 out of 10s out of 10s. The songs in this, the only one I remember is the I Always Wanted a Brother, whatever the hell it's called, the Brother song. That's because they keep just saying it, just stuck in my head. But it's not a song I feel the need to listen to. Like, all the other songs are just kind of like there. And what's crazy is this is the songs are created by Lin-Manuel Miranda. And that's the reason why he wasn't available to do Moana 2. Okay, he was working on this. And I thought, like, oh man, it's like, well, I'm sure the songs in this will be man. They're really not. They're very unmemorable. They're kind of just like, they're cushioning in between scenes. They're just passing in between scenes to just expand the running time. In a weird way, it was kind of like Joker 2, where Joker 2 would, Folie à Deux, which crazy movie came out this year. Awful film. But like, you had these songs that would just like take place in between two scenes, but they would be not relevant to anything that happened. And they kind of have like several songs that are like that in the film. It's just like, okay, what is this song actually about? It's just like you're just having a song in here. It's like, well, Lion King is, this musical, it has songs, so put a musical bit in here. But it doesn't serve this, and that's the huge mistake. It doesn't serve the story, right? At least many of them do, or I felt like they didn't. They just weren't memorable. And that's probably the most shocking thing about this movie is that just the music was like, whatever. So yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it is better than the 2019 film, just because, it is doing its own story. Like, I'll give it that, even though it's definitely borrowing from Lion King 2 and a little bit of Lion King 1.5, right? But at least it's not just like regurgitating the same scenes over again, except just not nearly as good. It's like, okay, this is new, this is different. It's just they're not executed all that well. And the one thing that I thought would be good with the music, it was disappointing. But the worst thing is they just really undercut and they underdevelop these characters, especially Taka, who becomes Scar. It's like his turn is completely not earned in the movie, and I just kind of was left just feeling, afterwards. It's not I don't think it'll be on my top 10 worst list. Maybe an honorable mention. Like I've seen a lot of movies, especially these last couple weeks. I've seen some wretched shit. You know, it's not on the same level as Kraven the Hunter or anything like that. Like no, or some other horrible movies. It's not a Megapolis. You know, it's not a Rebel Moon. It's not an Argyle. But it's just there. You know, and it's unmemorable. It's not memorable whatsoever. So. Yeah, Chad, I didn't need to know the story of the Lion King, specifically Mufasa, the Lion King. But that's just my general thoughts on the movie and some of those big spoiler moments. But what about you guys? Is anyone seeing this movie? People are seeing this film, although I think Sonic 3 is going to eat its lunch. It's going to take its zebra out from under it, no doubt about it, and just eat it right in front of Mufasa and Taka and the rest of the Lion King characters. Like, I'm much more excited to see Sonic 3, and I'm very, probably when this review eventually comes out to YouTube, I'll have seen Sonic 3. And I can share my thoughts on the film. I'm looking forward to that quite a bit. But yeah, have you seen the movie? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Were you mixed on it? Let me know.
5 minutes later.
So great movie. Yes. Oh, yes, indeed. Oh, man. Let's see here. Not seeing this till after Christmas, says Space Cowboy. Elliot Hobbs like L for Mufasa. I agree. Look at little Simba. He's so adorable. Andrew, this movie's apparently going to kill it overseas track. No, I can understand it doing very well overseas. You know, it's a big CGI spectacle. I mean, where the talking's just not important. The talking and the songs aren't important because that's not the thing that they're focusing on really in the movie. Now, the animation is better compared to the 2019 film. Like, the animals are much more expressive. They give them cartoonier features, which I think was a smart decision. But it's still not enough. Maybe it's my bias, and that's fair. You know, I just prefer the look of the 2D character. I grew up on it for years. So, you know, that's what I vibe with, personally. Let's see here. Yeah, Toy Story is wonderful. I've loved all the Toy Story films. See how they do at 5. I had my misgivings about 4, believe me, but it's like, all right, give him a shot. Barry Jenkins gets his money. Hopefully, he can go make it some movies like Moonlight. Yeah, I know. Jesus, he needs to because none of his sensibilities I feel like are coming. Maybe the stuff with, I guess the brother that angle with Scar and Mufasa, but it's just not enough, you know. And I think he undercuts it. Did he write this as well? I have to look it up. Let me see if you're right. I didn't even look at the screenwriters. Screenplay is by Jeff Matheson. He did The Lion King. He also did The Young Woman in the Sea. He did Tower Heist. Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Fucking Christ. He wrote Rush Hour 3. Oh, he did write Rush Hour 2. I like that movie. Speed 2, Cruise Control. Oh, wow. Wow. You wrote Catch Me If You Can? That's insane. All right, so that's an interesting filmography. Let's see. Nepotism, I know, for little Beyonce Jr. I don't know what her name is. I just call it Beyonce Jr. Blue Ivy. That's what she's a plant. She's a plant, chat. I promise you have a great VO voice. Send a demo. Oh, my. I'd love to. Believe me, I've talked about like one of my dreams, one of my pursuits that I would love to do one at some point. I don't know when I would do is do voice acting. I would love to do voice acting. I would, oh God, because I love animation and I follow so many voice actors. And I love so much of their work. Everything from the late great Kevin Conroy to people like Rob Paulson. You know, so many talented folks. Jim Cummings, and I love the voice acting in The Lion King. So that's the only reason they did the whole not related by blood thing was to explain the different accents. I just, to me, I'm not basing this on everything. It just feels like a modern Disney thing where it's like, well, we don't want to have them related because it's kind of toxic that the hero would have a blood relation to the villain. It just kind of reeks of that to me. You know, that's the only thing. The baddies are white lions. Yeah, colonizing lions. I'm like, oh, you guys, they're not being subtle with that. I was like, oh my God. And like their whole thing is just like, I forget the Mads Mikkelsen's line's name. It's Mads Mikkelsen. He's like, I want to control the world. Like he has global domination aspirations. He wants to control, like, you see the sun, all the light. It's like, he's like the inverse of Mufasa. He's like, yeah, fuck everybody. I want this all for myself. Where the sun rises to wherever the light touches, that shit's gonna be mine. That's his whole thing. And Mufasa takes that, but he's more endearing and caring, and that's what he he becomes king not because of, and that's the thing. It's not where you came from. It's not your blood. It's the actions that you take in your life that and he proves himself. Well, whatever. In the context of the movie, he proves himself to the animals. They're like, dude, you're fucking cool. You want to be king? He's like, all right, I'll be king. But yeah, the baddies are white lions. Yeah, I was like, oh my god. Luke said they do a Lion King too. They could actually make Kovu Scar's biological son like you originally played. Oh, too, before they realize, wait, they do that, it gets with the Simba's die. I know. It's so funny with the incest stuff. Good point. A wild Nia Brownie suddenly appears. Yeah, I mean, they set up for, I'll tell you right now, they set up to do another one. Because they, in the movie, like, you have it where Kiara, Beyonce Jr., she's going to be queen of the Pride Lands, but then, they're going to set up her brother as well, who they don't name. And they're going to introduce the Lion Guard and all that. So, yeah, what they'll do is I bet you if this does well, and it probably will, they will do an adaptation of Simba's Pride. Like The Lion King 2. That they will do that. They're going to do or make it the VOD movie. They're going to bring in Zira. They're going to do, all of them. They'll bring in Kovu. Yep. Yeah. So he's a character from a Dial of Destiny line from pretty much. Yeah. He's a Nazi. They're a bunch of Nazi lines. Someone calling G.I. Robot. Oh, man. They make him a simp. Scar. Yeah, he's a major simp. He's an incel. He's an incel lion. The damn whiteys. Oh, Lord. See your spot. Great South Days. We love on prospering. Good to see you, good sir. Lin Miranda wastes his talent in this movie. Yeah, I mean, the music wasn't very good. They are more expressive in the film. They are. My drag at the theater. Yeah, there's better things out there right now. Sonic trying for 60 million in the States. Mufasa about 50 million. Yeah, pretty close. But yeah, Sonic. I'm more interested in seeing Sonic. Bishop says I'll watch it eventually. It's not related. It's a dumb idea. It's just a weird. It's like, why? What's the point? So I haven't seen a Disney live action remake except for Jungle Book. That one's good. If you're gonna see any of them, that's the one to see. Everything else is like, eh. Like there's some that are okay. They're like, all right, that was fine. But then there's others that are just dog shit. I have no interest in them. I think this is another path. Oh, definitely. Like I save your money. Obviously, I'd always tell you, make up your own mind. It's just me sharing my opinion, just my thoughts on it. You might like it, or whatever. But I think there's better things out there. Color Maze, fuck them kids. Good to have you here, Color Maze. Hope you're doing very well. Pleasure. Nepotism and fine light. Oh, definitely. Well, I don't think it sounds like the only thing Jenkins might have contributed to the story. Yeah, I think so. I was like, it's just like I didn't realize it while watching the movie. I remember seeing all the trailers and stuff, and them being like white lions, but didn't really see, because it's just a trailer. It's just 2 minutes. I didn't really think about it. But then I'm like watching the movie, like, oh, they're just evil white people. I'm like, oh my god. So it's like, okay. Oh man. Megan Vince is Disney Lion King versus Evil Kimba. Yeah, it's Evil Kimba, I suppose. Oh, Jon Snow Mufasa. I don't want it. Kinda. Yeah, it's pretty much. Yeah, he's like Jon Snow in this movie. Oh, when they do a 1.5 on a way to fuck that up too, they do a little bit of 1.5 in this. They do that. They lean into that because Timon and Pumbaa occasionally interrupt the story to put themselves in it and do little funny gags. And the thing is, like, I'll say this. In the 2019 film, like, one of the better aspects of it was actually Billy Eichner and Seth Rogen as Timon and Pumbaa. Like, they were actually pretty good. They were doing that. And the thing is, they were doing their own thing. It was like, all right, yes, you have those iconic performances from the original film, but they weren't just doing copies, like lesser copies. They were like, we're going to do our own take on these characters. And I think it worked. Like, they were the best voice actors in the previous movie. They were better than Donald Glover. They were better than Beyonce. We shouldn't have been cast. They were better than Chwedio Ejiofor, But in here, they're annoying. They're annoying in this movie. I was like, all right, less of them. Thank you. Not working. Hate these remakes, Tom Mulligan. Yeah, I mean, last one. How much did the last one make? Let me see. 2019 Lion King. I know it made over $1 billion. $1.6 billion, chat. It killed. People wanted to see it. And I'm sure, I don't think this is going to make as much. I think internationally is going to perform better. But yeah, so, I mean, that's what this one makes, you know, however, because I don't even know the budget. I'm going to say $250 million. It's 200, whatever. So yeah, but if this crosses over however much, you know, if they manage to reach $1 billion again, I bet you bet your bottoms, chat. Bet your booties that they're going to make a third Lion King, and they'll adapt. They'll most definitely adapt Simba's Pride. It just makes sense because they set it up in this movie. So I don't care to see that, but I'll review it. But yeah, chat, there you go. Boom. That's my thoughts on the Lion King. Excuse me. Fuck, who cares? Mufasa, and heavy emphasis on that, the Lion King. Yeah, let me know your additional thoughts if you guys do eventually check it out.